Fail. Am I on? Am I recording? You didn't take all those, did you?
I took all that.
Can I get that footage? Because I want to keep that and try something.
Can you say the alphabet backwards?
Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S. Have I messed up?
Yep.
Okay.
So no.
So no.
What's your failure to success ratio in life?
Failures to success ratio? I'd probably say like 4 failures for every 1 success.
It's pretty high. Fail a lot, definitely. But the more failures, the closer you are to your success.
That's right. Well, I don't think anything is a failure, so I don't really know. It's a lesson learned.
What's something you did recently that you would have to classify as a failure?
I went on a really big road trip and my wallet did not make it. I left it on the hood of the car, and that is a failure.
I think my accounting grade was a failure. It wasn't actually an F, but it was bad.
Well, our business is this is not the first time around. We were called something else, had different menu items.
I learned that you should always do the hood check.
Failure. Fail. Loser. I failed at that, didn't I? Let's do that again. Failure. Something we all want to avoid, right? No one wants to be a failure, a loser, someone who messed it up. That's awful. Except for on the internet. Failures on the internet are like my favorite things in the whole world. I love internet fail videos. My favorite fail video on the internet is when dude is like interviewing the other dude and he goes and try that again. When dude's interviewing the other dude and he I'm ready. Okay. My favorite fail video online is when one dude's interviewing the other dude and he goes, "Hey, I'd like to interview you, but I'm really gonna scare you right now." And the other dude jumps out of the trash can and he gets punched in the face and he like folds into the trash can. I love that stuff. Quality entertainment right there. Catch this back. Oh shoot, click, click. Thanks, internet. Failure is not fun. And we all shy away from it, but should we? Could God be talking to us in the midst of our failure? Could God be saying something in the middle of our mistakes? If so, what would he be saying? How would we respond? Would that change the way we feel about failure? God is talking to us through our failure. We're going to call this segment Story Time with Mr. Paco. Hey kids, I'm Mr. Paco. And here's your story. We are going to take a look at one of the most colossal failures in the Bible. His name was Peter. Peter was awful at a lot of things. You can say he was an expert on failure. But he was one of Jesus' best friends. He was like Jesus' good buddy. Failure. Dude was always brash, always irritating people, always just generally messing stuff up. This dude, Peter, was like a loudmouth. He was always like, "Yeah, Jesus, I love you, man. It's me and you, bros for life, dude. Like, nobody's gonna get in between me and Jesus, bro." One time the fight breaks out. Peter grabs a sword, goes to cut a dude, and ends up slicing his ear off. What part of the body were you swinging for to cut an ear off? An ear, right here. This is where your ear is if you're not sure. What was he cutting? What was he trying to do? If you're trying to cut the dude's head off, you're going, you missed pretty bad, Peter. You're not a good sword fighter. I don't know, maybe he was a great sword fighter. Maybe he was like, "I'm gonna teach you to listen. Lesson learned." I don't know, I'm not a sword fighter. I can barely cut a tomato. I don't know. So Peter has this awesome opportunity. When Jesus is on trial and he needs a friend the most, he screws it up. He denies Jesus. He's an awful friend. Peter's standing outside and a dude walks up to him and is like, "Hey man, aren't you Jesus' homeboy? Aren't you like his buddy? Aren't you guys like bros?" Peter's like, "Nah, I don't know, nah, I don't know him and you don't know me, so get out my face." And then this little girl comes up and she's like, "Hey, wait a second, ugly dude named Peter, aren't you Jesus' friend?" And Peter's like, "Shut up, kid, I hate kids, get away from me." And he freaks out and he denies Jesus. He denies his bro. Peter has this great opportunity to actually be the friend he talks about being and he boasts about being, and he fails. Talk about a failure. So in the middle of all that, Peter is feeling awful. He's feeling like a failure. He's feeling like his whole thing is just crumbled on him right now. So he remembers this conversation that he had with Jesus beforehand, where Jesus basically tells him, hey, listen, Peter, buddy, bro, when you fail, because you will, just remember, learn from your failures. Just remember, you failing doesn't make you a failure. Jesus wanted to talk to Peter in the middle of his failure. God had amazing plans for Peter and his failures. Not to bore you with the details, but Peter actually learned a ton through his failures. But he only did that because he believed that God was speaking to him through his failures. That's how failures work. As God is speaking to us through our failures, we can hear his voice and we can know what to do. Ooh. Hey, let's keep it real. A lot of us feel the burden of being perfect. We feel like if we're not perfect, we're failures. You're not perfect. You fail. You're not a failure. You might feel like your mistakes are dragging you down. You might feel like a constant failure. You might feel like you're not meeting any of the expectations. You might feel like your failures are right in your face, like right there all the time, and they're like the only thing you can see. Everybody, do this with me. Whew. Take a deep breath. Take a couple more. Whew. Whew. One more. Whew. Now hear this. Hear this right now. That voice that's telling you that you are a failure because you've made mistakes, that is not God's voice. That is not of God. You failed, I failed, we've all made mistakes, but we are not failures because of it. That is not God's voice. That's the enemy's voice. And I want to say something to the enemy right now. Enemy, you have no place here. You have no power. Go far from here. Go far from these people. You have no power. You have no authority here. Now, I want you to take another deep breath. And I want you to listen to this. For God knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. God knows all about you. He knows the frame that you're made with. He knows your wiring. He knows that you are from dust. He knows everything about you. He knows that you make mistakes. And he wants to use those mistakes to speak into your life. God wants to encourage, strengthen, motivate, inspire your community through your failures. We all want to hear from God, and he wants to speak to us through our failures. I'm a beatbox failure.